9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes. I became connected to fictional cats. All that. I didn't realize my window was open. Hi guys, if you're new here, hi, I'm Alaya. If you're not, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about all the books I read in January through February. My plan for today was just to do a February wrap-up, but I realized that I didn't actually do one for January because I didn't start this channel until the end of January, so I didn't really have I didn't know what I was doing at that point. But today I thought I would just do both just to compile it all into one. Last night I went through and kind of just wrote all my books down and just like a few thoughts and my rating and stuff. So I have a total of I wrote 10 books, but one of them is a series with 6 books in it. So I have a total of 15 books on here. Is that how that math is? Wait, because it'd be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes. So I have a total of 15 books. And so we're going to go through all of them today. So I'm going to go in chronological order, starting in the beginning of January. Keep in mind, a lot of these are audiobooks because I was crocheting a lot the past 2 months, and I like to listen to audiobooks while I crochet. I like multitasking, and I get through books faster when I read them audiobook-wise because I read them at 2.5 speed, so it's nice to get things done like that. Okay, my first book of the year was Husband Material by Emily Belden. I read this from January 3rd to January 4th, and I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. This book follows Charlotte, who is a 29-year-old widow, as she's forced to deal with her grief that she's pushed aside for years because her husband's ashes show up at her door. So it's kind of like she's grieving, but also she's being able to move on because she's actually dealing with that part of her life. It is a romance book, so it's a husband's best friend romance, which I liked kind of. I didn't love it. I think the dynamics weren't completely there, but it was a cute, just chill little book. I got through it really fast, obviously. So it's husband's best friend. It's kind of toxic family-in-law because she's forced to deal with her husband's family and just grief overall. But yeah, it was a pretty good book, pretty decent. So yeah, 3 out of 5. First book I read. The second book I read was from January 5th through 6th, and that is No Offense by Meg Cabot. Cabot, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but by Meg. 3 out of 5 stars. It was a really decent book. I did like the actual premise. It follows Molly, who just moved to this town. She's the new librarian in town, and on our first day of work, she finds an abandoned baby in the bathroom. So she's forced to deal with the sheriff, who's kind of investigating this abandoned child, and ends up having that whole little romance with him. It's kind of a forced proximity, a new life starting type book. It's really good on the idea that there's kind of like tensions going on, but it is just a cute, lighthearted romance. There's a little bit of mystery because, like I said, a baby was abandoned, but it's not heavy in any regard, and it was a decent little read. Once again, listen to it audiobook wise. So yeah, second book I read in January. The third book I read in January was Booked for the Holidays by Liz Maverick. I rated this a 3 out of 5, and I read it completely on January 15th because it was just that easy to kind of listen to. Once again, audiobook. Most of these are audiobooks. I think I have 2 physical books that I read. Like I said, these 2 months were all audiobooks for me. This book basically follows Abby, who works in the publishing industry, as she goes to kind of talk to a very famous author of this popular book series because she's supposed to be writing the last series of the book to kind of wrap it all up. And she finds out that she can't finish it at all, so her grandson is finishing it for her. And so Abby helps the grandson finish the book. And it's just really cute. I know I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I did like this book. 3 out of 5 for me just means it's a chill book. It's not bad. It just means it's chill. And so this book is kind of like a forced proximity, but not necessarily forced. Like it's willingly, but like she's like, well, this is my job. I kind of have to help you do this, but also I want to be here to do this because she loves the book series. So yeah, kind of like forced proximity. It's a baker romance. The guy's a baker. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but the guy's a baker, and I'm gonna keep mentioning bakers because I love baking romances and anything that has to do with like baking. So yeah, he's a baker. It's really cute. I also wrote down that like one of the tropes is kind of just like writing a book because when books talk about writing a book, I think it's actually cool to like kind of go through that process while also reading that process, if that makes sense in any regards. The fourth book I read in January was A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penner, I believe is how you say it. I rated this a 3 out of 5 stars, but I actually really liked it. It just wasn't like above and beyond, but I did really like the book. It follows Arletta, who is a human in this like magical world with like elves and trolls and all that jazz. And she's a baker, but nobody kind of takes her seriously because she's a human. And she ends up going to this baking competition, which is all magical people except for herself. So it's kind of her finding her way in a community that she really loves, but she doesn't have magic. So it's kind of cool like that. I wrote down that this is a baker's romance because, like I said, bakers. And she does end up with this guy who is an elf who kind of helps her along this journey. But it's also like a humans versus magic because, like I said, she's the only human there. And it's also a found family because she kind of finds a community within people who aren't like her, but connect to her in a way that she's never felt before. So yeah, and it was actually pretty good. I wanted to read the next book in like a series. They're like standalones, but in a series. But it's not an audiobook yet, so maybe I'll get there when it's there. The fifth book I read was How to Lose a Guy Before Christmas by AJ Pine. And I read this from January 21st to January 22nd. And I did rate it a 2 out of 5 stars. Not because I didn't like the book, but because it just wasn't like chill. Like it was a decent book, but I didn't really like the plot. It wasn't for me necessarily, so it got a 2 out of 5. It basically follows Lucy. He's trying to get home for the holidays, but there's a snowstorm, so her flight's canceled. So she goes into a rideshare app, and there's one person who can give her a ride because they're going to like the same general area. But it's a guy who she ghosted after having a one night stand with. So it's a forced proximity kind of holiday Christmas as they end up in this like Christmas town type thing. It just wasn't my type of book. It was very cliche, which I usually love, but I guess I'm not like the holiday cliche type of person. There just wasn't a lot for me to base my review on for like the characters and the dynamics and the relationships. So it got a 2 out of 5 for me, but I did read it in a day. So it obviously wasn't bad enough for me to DNF it. So if you like that, you'd probably like it. Okay, like I said earlier, one of these books on here is actually a series, and that is book number 6. It is the Warrior series, so it's books 1 through 6. I read all of them. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but I'll put all my ratings on the screen. I'll put like maybe here, or like here, or like here, I don't know. But I'll put all my ratings on the screen. I read this because it was my partner's favorite book series when they were a child, and so I was like, I'll read it. Give it to me. I'll read it. I'll read it right now. And so I listened to all the audiobooks. I actually bought them the series and then started listening to the audiobooks. And I loved the series. I would give the overall series a 3.5, 4 out of 5 kind of range, because it is like a young adult. So there's not a lot of developed dynamics, but for it being a young adult, it is developed. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it's not high, but it's definitely not the lowest young adult book I've read. And so it's really good. But it basically follows Rusty, who is an orange house cat, who decides to leave his house cat life behind to join like a society of cats in the forest who are like, they're like warrior cats, which is why it's the Warrior Cat series. But he joins the society by joining one of the 4 different clans who's are all going through distress. But yeah, it's a lot of world building in the first book, but once you get through it, I became connected to fictional cats. Kind of concerning, but it was really good. And so if you want to read something like that and not take it too seriously, I would suggest the Warrior Cat series. It's a very deep, deep, deep community. Once I finished it, my partner was showing me all of like the edits and stuff. It's literally like so many different animations and songs and just everything. And so, yeah, it was great to read. I actually really enjoyed it. And so I would recommend it if you want to get through something that's not really deep, but also has those aspects of like magical realism and found family and kind of all that. I didn't realize my window was open. Oh my gosh, are you going to be able to hear me? And I read those from January 21st to February 13th. So it was like a long line of just 6 books and me listening to audiobooks while going to school and kind of getting stuff done. So it took a while, but I do recommend it. It was really good. I actually have book number 7 with me, and that is Battle Royal by Lucy Parker. This was a book on my 25 for 2025, which you can go watch. It's basically the 25 books I want to read in 2025 to feel like a good reader, like my most desired reads. And this was a little disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. It basically follows Sylvie and Dominic, who are competing kind of bakers. She's really like colorful and fluffy and enthusiastic and sugar and sparkles and stuff. And he's complete opposite. He's like dark and neutrals and mean. It's like a grumpy sunshine, obviously. They're co-star judges on a baking show that she was on, and he got her like kicked off of because he didn't like her and she had like a malfunction. I don't know. You'll read about it. It's not a spoiler, but something happened and she got kicked off, but she came back as a judge, and so now they're co-star judges. But they also end up being competitors to bake a cake for the royal family who are having a wedding. And so it's rivals to lovers, co-stars to lovers, like forced proximity. It's good in that I liked the premise. Like, I bought it because I liked the idea of it. Like I said, I love a baker's romance. I love a grumpy sunshine. I love an opposites attract. Like, I love that. But the book was in third person, and I'm all chill with third person. Like, a lot of the books I read are in third person. But something about the way it was written, I had to start the audiobook. So I started with this and had to switch to audiobook because it just wasn't clicking for me. Like, I wasn't able to connect to the characters because of third person. And so that bumped it down to a 3 out of 5 stars for me. I do like the premise, and I did like the plot points and each different aspect of the book. But I wasn't able to get super deep into it because it was kind of confusing to follow along with without listening to the audiobook. So yeah, I read this from February 16th to February 19th. And 3 out of 5 stars. It was decent. I would recommend it if you're able to read third person and kind of dive deeper into that. But it wasn't a favorite, which is slightly disappointing because I was really excited to read this. It's fine though. Book number 8 was a book that I loved so much, and that is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. If you know one thing about me, Mariana Zapata is one of my favorite authors of all time. She has written my favorite romance book, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I love that book so much. And so I wanted to listen to this book. I loved it so much. It basically follows Aurora, who moves to her hometown, which is in the mountains, to kind of reconnect with herself after stuff goes on, and like she just feels very disconnected with everything. So she moves back to her hometown, and she ends up living in Tobias's second house, garage, separate space type thing. It's really cute. It's a opposites attract. Not necessarily grumpy sunshine, but he's obviously like grumpy, and she's obviously like the kind of more optimistic type person. It's a small town single dad romance, which we love here. We love a good single dad romance. It was really good. 4 out of 5 stars. I love Mariana Zapata. There's nothing she can do wrong in my eyes. So I would recommend that book if you love a slow burn, and if you love Mariana Zapata, you will love All Roads Lead Here, I fear. Book number 9 is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. I read this from February 20th to February 21st, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. This was just like a chill book for me. It wasn't necessarily a book that I didn't like, but it wasn't like one of my tops, obviously. I did end up listening to the audiobook of this because I do own this, but it's an ARC, so it's not the finished copy, so I wanted to kind of listen to the finished copy. It basically follows Hallie, who's like a spontaneous, cheerful, chaotic gardener, as she gardens the home of her longtime crush. She's trying to figure out her life and figure out what she wants to do, and also try to get like rid of this chaotic self because it's kind of like a coping mechanism to be super chaotic. They basically reconnect because Julian is home writing a book because he's going through a kind of midlife crisis, so there's kind of a lot going on for him. But he's more of an anxious person. He has a lot of anxiety, and so he's very strict in the way he acts. He's very planny, he's very straightforward, and so them opposites attracting, them clashing in like different aspects is really cute to read. It was a very cute book. It just wasn't top for me, but it was a really good book. I did like it, so I would recommend it if you like that type of thing. I would consider this a childhood friends, because they weren't necessarily friends in childhood, but they did kind of connect. So a childhood friends to strangers to lovers, but it's also dealing with like mental health and anxiety, and also just like finding life and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really good. I would recommend it if you like that. So yeah. The last book I read, I started and finished on February 23rd, and that is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I don't talk about Cara Bastone a lot because I started reading her a long time ago when I first started listening to audiobooks, but she is one of my favorite audiobook authors. I don't know if she strictly does audiobooks because when I was listening to her, they were only audiobooks, but Ready or Not was really good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Obviously, I finished it in one day. It basically follows Eve after she gets pregnant from her one night stand and she's forced to kind of deal with these aspects of like creating new life and connections, but also not having those deeply like traditional family like households. She's forced to kind of go through and acknowledge all the relationships in her life because she is kind of grieving. She doesn't have a lot of family, but she also has found family and friends, but she's kind of like teetering with them because of this pregnancy. She's kind of dealing with pregnancy as someone who's never thought she was going to be pregnant or thought about having that kind of relationship with somebody. It is a best friend's brother romance, but it's also about her finding those relationships in life and connecting with the baby's father, but not necessarily doing it to where they're going to end up happily ever after and everything's okay. So I kind of like how it's not just like, oh, because I'm having your baby, we're here. Like, it's like, it shows those deeper kinds of conversations and those deeper feelings of somebody whose life is going not according to plan and who's kind of forced to deal with that as she's creating life. So it's really good. I do definitely recommend this book if you like unexpected pregnancy and that kind of unexpected romance from somebody. So yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I need to read more. It's already like March, 6th? Yeah, it's March 6th and I haven't read a single book, so I need to get going. I also need to start crocheting. So if you want me to make like a crocheting or reading type vlog, let me know. And yeah, I hope you all have a good day. And let me know if you want any more book recs. So yeah, I love you guys. Have a great day. Mwah. Bye. My hair got really flat because it's only like day 2 and so there's no oils and it won't stay up. I'm also on my knees because I changed freaking positions.